So in diabetes, as a part of my PhD research, I developed reinforcement learning algorithms to recommend personalized insulin recommendations for type 1 diabetic patients, and as well as the type 2. I also developed algorithms for behavioral recommendations, for example, to give treatment at optimal times. And I also collaborated to how to give adjunctive therapies like GLP-1 receptor agonistic, pramlintide, and other hormones along with insulin. As a part of my postdoc research, I'm developing personalized LLM-based solutions to fully automate the clinical treatment planning workflow for the cancer. And my long-term goal is to, with a just single mouse click, I would be able to fully automate the treatment planning for cancer, for any cancer site and cancer types. So I will first start with the quick intro about the cancer. So normally in human body, the cells grow, divide, and die with a very controlled way. But in the cancer, unfortunately, due to mutations, the cells don't follow that controlled architecture. Like they don't grow, divide, and and die in a controlled way. So then they spread. First they grow uncontrollably, and then they spread to other parts of the body. And cancer is one of the leading cause of death around in the world. And we have, and secondly, we have almost 19 million new cases every year, and there are about 10 million death as well. So there are a lot of treatments for the, and it's very challenging to pick which treatment would be better for each patient. So with the, we can give chemo, hormonal therapy, radiation therapy, surgery, and we give combination of any one of those to the patients. It depends on the cancer type, their staging, extra. And by the way, the radiation therapy, which we use, in which we use radiation to kill the cancer, it has been used for over two-thirds of the cancer patients in the world right now. So despite all of the advances in the core treatment types, their methodologies, how you can administer them, so many patients still face poor clinical outcomes. I will describe those later in this slide. And this issue is more pronounced in low and middle income countries where we don't have expert doctors available, expert human planners available, as well as the machines to administer those recommendations. So here my research is as a in my postdoc. Right now I'm focusing more on radiotherapy treatment planning workflow using multi-modal cancer data. So I will just quickly go through the uh, planning workflow so that it would be easier to discuss my research further. So in the radiotherapy workflow, once the CT exams, all the lab reports are available. The first the physician the board prescribes how much radiation dose this patient would have to take, and there how many fractions would be. So the goals, clinical goals, like because in radiotherapy it's very easy to kill tumor, but we have to spare healthy organs as well. So then we have to acquire a human planner. It's not a doctor; it's just a bachelor degree holder whose job is just to operate this treatment planning software in which we optimize those doses, because doctors doesn't know how to operate those software because it's based on math and physics principle. And the job of the human planner is to iteratively adjust the cost functions which we just described, how much radiation dose has to give to the tumor as well as to the healthy organs. And this job is very tricky and very trial and error, and there's a lot of time this is being consumed to prepare a clinical plan for a single patient. Sometimes, for example, the head and neck cancer, it can take up to more than 2 weeks or maybe at least 1 week to prepare a clinical plan. And this is not enough. Once the human planner feels like the plan is okay, mean it meets the local guideline, it shows to the final decision making body, which is the physician. Physician reviews the plan, which actually is CT images, CT MRI images, and the radiation plan, like the doses. And if the plan is okay, then it's ready to be to deliver to the patient. If it is not, then the physician has to communicate his suggestion to the human planner, and there's another iterative loop. And and it's very challenging to come to for the human planner to understand those communication from the physician, because physician has his own language, and a human planner sometimes it's very difficult to encode what physician wants. Sometimes physician provides recommendations at the end of working hours, and then the human plan has to see it in the in the next day. And so there's a lot of delay between human planner and the physician, as well as the outer loop as well, in which human planner automates the process. So this is very time consuming, and it can cause treatment delays to the patient. So just to summarize, in current radiotherapy, there is a it's very highly trial and error, and there's large volume of patients assigned to professional planner whose job is just to operate the treatment planning software. And recent data shows that about 15% increase in new cases, it can cause about 20% rise in waiting times. And this leads to complications. For example, one of the cancer, each day of the delay, it can increase the risk of death by about 2%. And as described earlier, despite all those advances in the in the human planner expertise, training, and the modalities, still it was found in this large clinical trial that about 9% of the patients still receive excessive radiation dose to the normal tissues, because it's very easy to kill tumor, but the objective is to avoid the radiation to the healthy organs. So and the last thing is the cost, because we have to hire for the at Johns Hopkins we pay about $150,000 per year to the human planner, and it's not enough. We also provide the excessive training classes and all the management staff to maintain the clinical workflow, and this cost is actually then comes down on the patients. And some of the patients don't with their insurance, they sometimes they don't get the optimal treatment due to this high cost in the radiotherapy treatment planning workflow. So um, recently I developed a auto planner for cervical, which is a woman disease, using a large language model. So this is a poster that it has been nominated for early career investigator at the APM conference in July. So basically, I developed a LLM to guide the treatment planning for cervical cancer. Just with a single mouse click, we provide the CT exams, MRI exams, and with just mouse click, under 9 and 10 minutes, it was able to provide a treatment plan that was as accept that was as comparable as the clinical plan. So here's the just short background about the cervical cancer. Is a woman disease. It's actually narrow passage connecting the uterus and the vagina, and this disease mostly more often common in low and middle income countries. And one of the modality to treat this cervical cancer is using high dose brachytherapy, which is nothing. It's just we put the tumor inside the body instead of treating it from the outside. And as I said, it's very easy to kill tumor, but the main issue is how we can avoid the healthy organs like bladder, rectum, and sigmoids. So it's a huge optimization problem in which we have to give maximum dose to the tumor, which is the cervix in this case, and to avoid dose to the healthy organ, which are bladders, rectum, extra. What we do in the traditionally in the treatment planning software, we define the objectives like how much dose we have to give to each organs, and then we adjust those weighting factors called lambdas. And these weighting factors are very trial and error to adjust, and it's very, as I said, maybe the human plan may able to have a plan which meets local guidelines, but it may not be acceptable for the physician. So on the right side I had a LLM, which is I just for the demonstration purpose, I had a llama 3.18 billion model over here, which I fine tuned it based on our local data at Johns Hopkins, which includes the CT MRI exams, as well as the segmentation masks, as well as the prescription and the clinical goals for the doctors. And then it's and then we fine tuned it to if we provide the uh, inference time, if we provide the new image, a new patient image mask, and the what doctor wants, with just one shot, with 3 or 4 shots as an agent, it able to come up with a solution. But we also, because as I said, it may be able to prepare a plan which is meets the local guidelines, but it may not be optimal for the physician. So we also built a virtual physician which provides a guided signal to the LLM that whether this plan will be accepted or not. So we also train this encoder using the patient's data, in which includes CT, MRI, as well as the prescription data. It's able to provide the probability whether this plan will be accepted or not. We also had an explanation module in which the each of the plan suggestions for the LLM will also be explained, like why LLM will come up with that particular solution. So we also had a conversation module for the physician, because the upper part is like a human planner along with virtual physician, but the final decision making body is the physician. Currently physician has to send right now the physician usually send recommendations for the plan feedback, usually by email, and then the human planner has to encode it. So we prepared a voice recognition module as well as the LLM, which is used transcribe to encode those physician recommendations into the optimization problem, and then we put it to the optimizer. So here the human physician can tell what he wants, what type of improvement he still wants in the final plan, and then it's directly communicated to the planner. So we don't need a human planner in the loop. So in this current workflow, the physician can prepare the treatment plan with just one single mouse click and with his own voice.
Anarki,
So
may I ask a question?
sure, sure.
So here, as I understand from that pipeline, I'm seeing two LLMs talking to each other, like in a conversation where the plan optimizer is a mediator between the two.
Yeah.
And where does the human involvement take place in this pipeline, or is there no human involvement at all?
So in the upper panel, it's like a virtual planner. There is no human. So we, although we had a virtual physician, it's like a doctor at our Johns Hopkins, which provides a guidance. So in the upper panel, there is no human. But in the
Mm.
left, in the bottom one, there is a physician, which is a final decision making body. Because if the plan is ready, this physician has to approve the plan before being delivered to the patient. So here is the physician, which communicates his
So it's
recommendations to the
that's
plan.
that's the doctor that making the final decision, correct?
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
physician is communicating with an LLM which has got access to the patient data, right?
yeah, exactly.
And generating the right set of questions, physicians, you know, have better understanding or resolution of the state of the patient in terms of, where, like at what stage, or what type of treatment and etc. So she is making the final decisions. I think that's what makes this pipeline human in the loop.
Yeah, exactly. And then this physician has, like, he sees all the CT exams, MRI, as what is the current clinical plan, and then it has to prove whether it has to accept or reject. If it is reject, then it can provide direct feedback to the planner. So we don't. Here there is no extra human involved in here, other than
Gotcha.
just only the physician.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So here's the virtual physician, which is like our medical oncologist at Johns Hopkins. So we train it. We actually, but there are no preferences. There are no hard coded preferences for the physician, because it has learned over the year. So actually, we got approved and rejected plans for the physicians, and we trained an encoder whose job is just to provide a guided signal to the LLM, like what is the probability that this plan will be accepted or not. So we obtained a like pretty high AUC, and it was at this module was acceptable by our physician. We also had a explanation model, which is basically Shapley values, and these values just tells like among all those features that LLM is using, those are geometric features, which features was most responsible for for accepting or rejecting that particular plan. So here is the LLM. So we tested on 55 patients' data, and each patient has about at least three treatment fractions. So here's the sample where we, in the real time, we provide the LLM receives the current clinical plan and the patient's data, geometric features. It actually tells whether this plan will be accepted or rejected. If it is rejected, then it was able to it was able to recommend like whether which organ receives excessive dose and how should we improve it, like whether we has to increase, decrease, or unchanged. And upon testing on 55 patients data, we received more than, we achieved more than 85% like accuracy with what the LLM provides, and what the our human planner, which is the dosimetricist at Johns Hopkins. So there was a like strong alignment between the LLM response, as well as the human preference, as well as the human planner. So I also developed an auto planner for whole brain cancer. Just a short background: whole brain cancer is not like a primary. It could be primary, but mainly it is a secondary tumor, which is tumor transferred from another side, maybe breast and the lung. But if there are more than one lesions or tumors in the body, in the brain, sorry, it's not sufficient. It's not feasible to remove it surgically. Then we use external beam radiotherapy, in which we lie patient on the treatment bed, and then we expose the radiation with it. And this is basically shown the linear accelerator, in which radiation comes from the treatment head, which is the uh, and then the as I said, in any radiotherapy treatment planning workflow, the objective is to how to give maximum dose to the tumor and to avoid it to the, and as well, while sparing to the healthy organs. And then we basically formulate this problem as inverse optimization, where we define the objectives, and those objectives are the guidelines set by our physicians. And the job of the human planner is to adjust those weighting factors, these are very challenging to iterate, to adjust, because of the large and interpatient variability, as well as the human preferences, as physician preferences as well. So we had a deep learning model, in which we provide the CT MRI masks, CT MRI images at the mask, and we do get the geometric features for the whole brain, which includes the volume, surface area, isocenters, length of one organ to another extra. There are about more than 30 geometric features involved in it. And then we had a deep learning model, which is a vanilla CNN, and we use it to, with just one, we provide geometric feature, and just with just one chart it was able to tell what would be the optimal weighting factors for that particular cost function, instead of doing it iteratively as the human planner does. We also had a human conversation, and this black window is actually treatment planning software we use at mostly in at John Hopkins, and other sites and people mostly use it. It's called a race station. And we also had a human conversation module, same like as the previous project, in which the human can once the plan is ready, then the human physician can review it, and if it plan is not ready, then it can provide direct recommendations to the treatment planning software. So we tested this whole auto planner on 15 patients retrospectively, and in the table 1 we can see there was a strong alignment between the deep learning plan as well as the clinical plan, and the p-value was not significant. You can see the even the numerical numbers looks very similar. The On the table 2 we also did a qualitative analysis, where we got expert medical physicists whose job is to prepare a clinical plan. So we asked him to review the clinical and the deep learning plan. And out of 15 cases, 14 of those cases were as acceptable as it is, or with some minor modifications. There was only one clinical plan which was bad. And that's why we had a conversation module, in which human physician can tell what is missing and what he wants, so that he can encode the recommendation. So here is a demo of the conversation module for whole brain cancer, where the physician can tell like what he wants, and then it was encoded by our LLM. So I'll just show a short demo over here. Hello, I've looked at the radiation plot. So target coverage is okay, but the OER doses doesn't look good to me. So I would decrease the OER doses because so this is a race station in which Feedback is directly communicated to the software.
What are the inputs, Adnan, again?
Sorry, just a second. Sorry. What was your question?
What were the inputs to the software?
So the input to the software are the what the doctor wants. In this for example, in this demo, the doctor said the target coverage is okay, but I want the OER dose, which is the doses to the healthy organ. It should be less than what I currently see in it. So the job of an LLM is to send. Is to translate those English sentence into a optimization problem. Like it's actually formulate a cost function for the planner. For example, let's say whatever dose we have right now minus what the doctor wants. It's like less than maybe 5% or 10% less than this. And this the input to the basically to the registration was the objectives of the human of the physician that he spoke in speech.
I see. I see. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now, just a summary, my proposed research for the next 4 to 5 years basically for the cancer is to do the treatment planning for all cancer type with a single mouse click. I will not do only the treatment planning, but because we currently suppose that the prescription is ready and the clinical goal is ready. So on the left side, I will also do the a joint foundation model in which we provide a CT, MRI, and clinical node. It would be able to come up with physicians uh, segmentations as well as the prescriptions and clinical goal for that treatment site. Once that is ready, then it goes to the joint treatment planner in which it actually does the treatment planning as I described earlier. But it's for any cancer like brain, head and neck, lung, pancreas, cervix, prostate, anything. And the idea is to use a evaluation module in which we have execution, which is like LLM agent. It actually process think and then it decides what 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 he has to do for the particular patient. Then I had evaluation module which actually looks up all the clinical, because it's very difficult for the clinicians to follow all the latest guidelines, literatures, and the clinical study. So this evaluation module will be able to look up for all the clinical guidelines, local preferences, local human physician preferences, um, particular patient preferences extra, and then it provide that signal to the execution module to be able to do it, to be versatile enough to do a treatment planning for any cancer site. And then I had a conversation module for any cancer type. It would be multi-turn, which is I already have it, and the physician can communicate. It's recommended for any cancer type to the module. Um, I'll just go shortly to the diabetes. So this is my part of PhD research. So in just a short overview of diabetes, diabetes is a chronic disease, unlike the cancer, in which if we treat it, it's finished. But in type 1 diabetes, it's a chronic disease, lasts till the death. But still, right now we have stem cell derived islet cells where it can cure the disease. But generally, this is a chronic disease which lasts as long as the patient is alive. So in the type 1 diabetic patient, insulin is lost, which is mean a hormone to regulate glucose level in the body. And so there is no insulin in the body. Then of course they need external insulin to treat the type 1 diabetes. So the aim of the insulin therapy is to regulate glucose level after meal as well as between fasting condition. So there are two terminologies in the diabetes: bolus insulin, which is used to cover insulin following meals, and there is a basal insulin, which is used to cover glucose during fasting conditions. So here's the challenges of insulin therapy. So insulin is the main hormone to regulate glucose level in the body. If we give more insulin, patient can go to hypoglycemia, means glucose below the required guidelines, which is the 4 millimole per liter. And severe hypoglycemia is life-threatening. If it is not treated, the patient can die in 1 hour or 2 hours, and at least it will go to ER. If we give the less insulin to what patients want, the patient can go to hyperglycemia, and hyperglycemia means high glucose level, which is above than 10 millimole per liter. This sustained hyperglycemia can cause long-term micro and macrovascular complications. So ADA guidelines, which is the American Diabetes Association, it recommends that adolescents should have HbA1c, which is mean glucose over last 3 years, 3 months. Sorry, it should be less than 7.5 for the adolescents, and it should be less than 7 for adults. But this is a big type 1 diabetes exchange registry in the US, and they contain many patients data. It is found that less than 25% of the individuals achieve those HbA1c targets, which is the mean glucose over the last 3 months. And there are many challenges in the current insulin therapy. Basically, inaccurate insulin dose. It's very difficult to adjust the insulin throughout the day because of the large inter and intra-patient variability, and as well as the hormonal, environmental, and behavioral factors that it actually influence the human body. And the management of high fat meals. So we can give insulin for the meals, but it's very difficult to adjust insulin for high fat because there are no guidelines for high fat meals present right now. And similarly for exercise, there are many patients, many type 1 diabetic patients don't participate in the exercise because they fear that they may go to hypoglycemia, and there are no personalized guidelines for exercise right now. So my PhD research was focused on many modality, but I will discuss right now only the MDA therapy, which is the in which it's like a treatment modality in which we give insulin through insulin injections through pens. These are called smart insulin pens. So just last slide, introductory slide, in which this is a optimization problem in type 1 diabetes. We have been a glucose, which is shown by the red graph, glucose, carbohydrates, basal and bolus doses. And I said if the insulin is not accurate, the patient can go to hypo and hyperglycemia. So there are three key parameters to adjust in the insulin therapy. It's carbohydrate ratio, which is used to provide boluses around the meal time so that glucose don't go high, as shown by the triangles, red triangles. Sorry, blue triangle, the red one are the meals. And the correction factor CF, which is the insulin doses given between meals, for example. And the basal is used to give insulin around the bedtime, which is basically delivered to normalize the glucose between fasting, sorry, in the fasting period, as well as the between meals. So I develop a personalized insulin dosing algorithm using reinforcement learning. So it takes the insulin time series glucose data for the whole week, meal logs, insulin doses, and it reviews it as in its state, and then it provides actions, and then it receives a reward, which is actually how much improvement it got from the previous week or from the previous 2 weeks. So we had this reinforcement learning algorithm in which it sees, as I said, the time series glucose data, meals information, and the insulin dose. It formulated as a state, action, and reward problem. The state is like current status of the type 1 diabetic patients. Action is the next treatment recommendations, which is like new therapy parameters, and reward is what improvement it got compared to the previous one. So we formulated as a sequential decision making problem because type 1 diabetes is like chronic disease which we have to these individuals have to take insulin over their life period. So we had this reinforcement learning uh, which can provide the insulin recommendations to those individuals, and we have tested this algorithm both for MDI and the closed loop, but currently I'm showing on only for MDI therapy. So we compare
Adnan,
first.
I'm sorry to disturb you. I have one question here.
Sure.
So, when you say individual living with diabetes, do you mean a real person or just a simulation model for that person? So, what's your environment?
Yeah. So firstly, we develop digital twins for the patients. And so here in the diagram currently is showing it can be both simulators because we tested on simulator as well as the on the real prospective clinical trial as well. So
Yeah.
first we trained it on simulator. So you
Yeah.
can
Okay.
consider it could be simulator as well as the real individual.
Okay.
For training it was a simulator,
Okay.
but for testing we tested
And is
on
the simulator the one that you developed
yeah
yourself, or is there a
yeah yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was like developed by myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So first we tested our learning algorithm with recommendations with endocrinologists. So we blindly gave the previous week's data to diabetic patients data to the endocrinologist as well as to the learning algorithm. First we tested on two. We chose two patients from our prospective clinical trial, which was a 16-week long study in which algorithm provided recommendation every week. We also gave that similar data to the endocrinologist, and we found out that there was a strong agreement between the learning algorithm recommendations versus the endocrinologist, and there was no disagreement. We chose 23 real world individuals who are using this Bigfoot Unity system. It's like a smart insulin pen to administer the insulin. So they use this system for 8 weeks, and we actually retrospectively analyze their glucose and insulin data. And similarly, on this both type 1 and type 2 diabetic individuals, we found a strong agreement, 60 about 65% or 60, and this is really high based on the agreement. Even there are some clinical studies in the literature. There was this about 65% agreement even among the endocrinologists, which is aligned with what we are seeing in the screen between the endocrinologist versus the learning algorithms, and there was no disagreement between the learning algorithm requirement for disagreements means if the algorithm says increase the insulin dose and the endocrinologist say that it should be decreased. This project is fortunately was acquired now by the Bigfoot, and now this company then acquired by the Abbott. So the Abbott is now actually trying to translate. They got it from us, and now they are trying to commercialize it.
What is that supposed to mean? Acquire? They acquire the whole project, or
So this is last project on diabetic patients. So we develop a multi-agent reinforcement learning to this is like first pioneer study and pioneering algorithm in type 1 diabetes in which we use reinforcement learning, basically multi-agent. There were a couple of agents, like mainly three for high fat and at least six for the exercises. The idea is to personalize recommendations for type 1 diabetic patients, um, both for for high fat meals as well as for aerobic exercises. So just a short overview for high fat. This is one of the clinical study in which a patient ate low fat meal at one time, shown by the bottom graph, and the high fat meal on in another intervention. It was a randomized controlled trial, and we can see that after when they ate high fat meal, their glucose level stayed always high, and it's very risky. As I said, if the glucose go about 10 millimole per liter stays there, it can cause long-term micro and macrovascular complications like retinopathy, like liver disease, kidney diseases, etc. um, so it's very challenging to administer to provide insulin for a high fat meal because there is a late high glucose level and there's large variability among the individual, and there are no guidelines like how much this particular patient should have and what type of insulin dose for pizza should be delivered on the top of the carbohydrate and what should be delivered for the fish, avocado, extra. And there was high variability among the individuals. So our solution was to develop a personalized algorithm which can provide personalized recommendation, and we would suggest us two boluses instead of one. Traditionally they were one patient takes at mealtime, and then we had a mobile app which gives a reminder to administer add another personalized bolus maybe 2 hours after meal. So similarly for the exercise is very challenging for type 1 diabetic patients. I said many people don't participate in exercise because they fear that they can go to hypoglycemia, and aerobic exercise like cycling, running, it can drop their glucose level. If there is some strength exercises, then their glucose level can go high, which we call it hypoglycemia. And if there is resistant exercises like intermediate between aerobic and anaerobic, then their glucose can sometimes go high and sometimes go down. And the challenges are as I said, as I described earlier, the hypoglycemia in which glucose go down, and then there's a huge variability among the individual, which actually prevents these individuals to participate in any exercises. And so instead of having only type 1 diabetes, some patient may go to for type 2, may have type 2 as well, because if they don't exercise, they become obese, and then and then they become more resistant to insulin, and this is another challenge. So I developed a personalized sports specific meal bolus advisor, which provides recommendation at mealtime, and then they can freely go to exercise after the meal. So here was the so actually we developed mobile app, which we gave is for a clinical study, which we gave this app to the patients, and this app actually takes their in which the patient can log their carbohydrate, daily carbohydrate, fat information, exercise type and timing, and their glucose value, and then the app gives them recommendations. Then and this app actually stores the multi-agent reinforcement learning algorithm, which is on the server, and actually reads all the inputs that was shown on the left side, and actually provide the exercise and as well as the fat recommendations to the patient, and then patient uses for the next week. And the in the reinforcement learning, just basically we had a state, action, and reward, which is basically current status, new actions, and the reward is basically improvement based on the guidelines, like uh, what we want from the patient once they do exercise. So we had a
Adnan, I'm
I
sorry.
bolus.
I'm sorry, I
Sure.
have a couple of more questions. So here, what type of reinforcement algorithms are you using specifically?
So for the clinical study, we're
Yeah.
using multi-agent Q learning, which is a Q network, uh, and we had a couple of agents, three for
And
fat and at least six for the exercise.
also, I just wonder whether it's possible to combine such algorithms with predictive control algorithms, because in such cases you can put constraints on the variables, etc. I think it can really, from a medical perspective, I think it can provide many benefits. But of course, I don't know how difficult it could be to develop a model for this for prediction.
Yeah, this is really good question. For technically, we had a first we had a constraints, safety constraints. One while we were doing the while the LLM was sorry reinforcement learning was providing the recommendation, but in another study for the closed loop, we had a model predictive control available. But I did not present my study over, so we had a model predictive which is from control theory, and we had all the constraints over, and the reinforcement learning is just supervisory signal
Yeah,
on the top of the model predictive control. So you are right, in the model predictive control we can provide all the constraints like insulin recommendations,
yeah.
uh, as well as the uh, other objectives that this particular patient had wants
Okay,
to have.
okay, thank you.
Adnan, I have a question too. Did you deploy the system for real patients, or did you
Yeah,
collect data from real patients, to test it, as a like just to see, where the problems are, in the whole loop, to identify,
yeah.
where to improve. Did you have those tests?
Yeah. So, firstly, I said we had a digital twins, like which we call it simulator. So we had a simulator that was used to train those algorithms. In the next slide, I'm reporting this nature paper was a nature communication paper was based on the clinical study. So we ran a clinical study, and this clinical study contains a mobile application which was connected with the algorithm deployed in the server, which was a Firebase server, and the patient took this mobile application and the server was running online, and they use the mobile app, they use the mobile for every week, and then at the end of for every Thursday, the algorithm reads their previous week's data, and then it provides recommendation for the next week. So we actually had this clinical study that I was supposed to present now. So we had a admission visit and this 16-week long study, and this and during each week, at the end of each week, this reinforcement learning algorithm actually reads their previous week glucose, insulin, and meal information logged on the mobile application, and then it provides the recommendation for the next week. The patient use their new recommendation for the next week. At the end of week, then algorithm reads again, process again, and then provides the recommendation. It goes on for the 60 week. So this was a real world clinical study in which we The mobile, we had a mobile application, and the algorithm is hosted online, and to provide automatically the recommendation throughout the 16 week. And before that, we tested it on a simulator before doing this clinical study with this reinforcement learning algorithm. Did I answer your question or no?
Şuayb Hocam?
I'm sorry, I think I've lost my connection. What was the question?
Sorry, I did I answer your question? So, sorry, did you hear my answer
No,
or
no, yeah,
no?
no. Yeah. I'm all
Okay,
good. I thought that maybe
okay,
you asked the question.
okay, okay, okay,
I got my answer. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Yeah. So the main eligibility criteria for this clinical study: the patient should have eaten should eat at least 3 high-fat meals throughout the study, and or should participate 2 times per week. And we recruited 15 patients that they use this reinforcement learning algorithm throughout the 16 week. And the adjust and the algorithm provided weekly recommendation for high fat exercise and the key therapy parameters, which are carbohydrate ratios and the basal insulin. So here's the clinical results based on this prospective clinical trial. So here's the I am showing the postprandial glucose, means glucose levels after meal. And after meal they participated in the exercise in sorry, they ate high fat meal during those meals. So this is data from 9 patients that they use this mobile app throughout the 16 week. And there was total 111 meals happened during the baseline period, which was the first 2 weeks of the intervention. And we can see with the baseline the glucose level after meal is like sustained high, it's not going to normal, which is it's like an it's incremental glucose from this baseline whatever they had at the meal time. But at the end of the intervention, which is last 3 weeks of the intervention, we had a pretty constant normal glucose level after the meal, and it was clinical significant, and the p-value was less than 0.01, and the outcome is incremental area under the glucose level curve. And the p-value was also significant for the insulin bolus that they got from the baseline and the value. So this found this tells that the improvement that we got is from the personalized bolus, is from the meal and the later. So here's the change in meal time and balance. So this shows that these are actually what adjustment the reinforcement learning algorithm did throughout the 16-week clinical study. And it shows that there was a huge variability among the individuals, which actually ensures that the reinforcement learning algorithm, we need a personalized algorithm because there was a huge variability among the individuals. And this was obvious from this clinical study as well. And and each patient needed a different amount of adjustments throughout the 16 week. And we had similar results for the post meal exercises when they did exercise after meal. So usually when people do exercise after meal, usually the aerobic exercises, sorry, their glucose level drops, and it's very risky because if it is not treated, patient can go to coma or even die if it is not treated. But at the end of the evaluation period, we had a pretty constant glucose, a pretty normal glucose level after the meal. And the p-value was also significant, which is the hypoglycemia. It's one of the primary outcome that we had for the post-meal exercise. At the meal boluses, uh, the patient took on average 10 units insulin at the baseline, but in the evaluation period, they took 80 units of insulin in the evaluation period. This shows that this reduced insulin prevented the people in going hypoglycemia. Just so and this similar observation that change in exercise recommendation, we can see there was a huge variability among the individual, and the algorithm adjusted throughout the week. And so this shows that there is uh, for exercise and high five, we need a personalized recommendation for each patients, and which can be seen from these graphs, and each line shows a different patient. Finally, just propose research for the next 4 to 5 years. So, with all those nuances in the algorithm, including myself as well as the gold standard insulin therapy right now available, Still less than 50% of the individuals right now with those gold standards, they achieve their glucose target. And my observation is those this could not be achieved with only insulin. So we need a full metabolic control where we can adjust not only insulin but also the adjunctive therapy because for example the pramlintide, GLP-1 receptor agnostic, and the other hormones have available. So my plan for the next 4 to 5 years is to have a personalized precision medicine for type 1 diabetic patients, which not only adjusts the insulin but also provide the fat, exercise, physical activity recommendation, and also the behavioral recommendations like what type of meal they should eat if their current insulin therapy is not enough to meet their glucose targets, as well as the um, and the another challenge is the meal. Currently, patient had to count meals when they had to provide meal, and it's very challenging for them to count meal. Studies shows that patient often overestimate the high fat meal, overestimate the big meals, and if they overset then they give more insulin, and which can cause hypo and hypoglycemia. So they right now we have to provide the patient had to count exercise sorry had to count meals for how many grams they are eating for carbs and fat. And my agenda also includes like I would have a like vision language model in which they take picture of the food, and this vision model can actually count the carbohydrates, and it would be for any country, for any site as for any patient as whatever they are eating. And the for exercises, I would have a personalized algorithm that can do treatment planning for all cancer sites. Sorry for all sorry For all exercise types, including not only in aerobic but also anaerobic as well as the strength training as well. Yeah, so that's end of my talk. Thank you.